Thank you, Rosemary. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I
Yeah, well, first of all, let me take a moment to thank you and everyone that has kept Mother Jones's memory alive these many years. And I've come across many of you in my travels. And Mother Jones, obviously, was an extremely important person in this country's labor movement, but particularly with United Mine Workers, if I might. Before I make a couple more comments about Mother Jones, I do want to reflect on the fact that April 28th was Workers' Memorial Day. And as we look back on the history of mining in this country, we put the number of miners that have passed away as either being killed in the mines, about 120,000, or dying from pneumoconiosis, which is better known as black lung, about 200,000. So 320,000 miners have died uh, mining coal and energizing this nation and making this nation the greatest nation on earth economically. So we remember them on April the 28th, and particularly those who died at Farmington, and where 78 miners died in 1968. We just celebrated a couple years ago the 50th anniversary of that, which led to the passage of the first Coal Mine Health and Safety Act in the United States of America, and the first time we recognized pneumoconiosis and occupational illness. So we have a lot to remember in our organization. But I never thought that I'd see today, when on April 28th, that people who were stocking groceries in grocery stores and people who were nurses and doctors and working in hospitals had a more dangerous job than coal miners. So as we think about this epidemic that's going across our land today, we should pray and as Mother Jones said, fight like hell because the workers are at real risk here, and we need to remember that probably more so now than perhaps any time in our history. And who knows how this is going to end. I'm also a Vietnam veteran, and it just staggered my imagination to think that in 2 months more people died in this country from this pandemic than died in the Vietnam War, and I just can't hardly wrap my mind around that. But I want you to think about a couple of points of time in our history so we can reflect on Mother Jones also. So I want everybody here to pledge that they'll watch the movie Mate One this month. And you're going to say, well, why would I want to watch Mate One? I've seen it before. This is the 100th anniversary of the Mate One massacre that will be on May the 19th, when coal miners rose up and Mate One and decided they weren't going to put up with these evictions of coal miners any longer. And when the Baldwin Felts thugs came back to Mate One, Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers and their friends gunned them down. And many people in the country said, well, I just cannot believe how vicious coal miners are. No one seemed to be bothered by all the coal miners dying daily in the coal mines, burned up, covered up. Then if they tried to do anything about it, they get fired and discharged, evicted from their homes. They basically slaves. Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers and Mother Jones were friends, by the way. And there are pictures of Sid Hatfield and Mother Jones together if you want to do some research on that. So why did I start with that? I think 1920 is a good place to start here. If you back up to 1912 and 1913, you find Mother Jones walking up and down the holler where I was born. I was born on Cabin Creek, 15 miles up the holler, as they say, and the road ended. And I was born in a company house to a company doctor. And Mother Jones used to walk that creek, and she was friends with my great grandmother, who was known as Mother Blizzard. And my dear friend Sarah Nelson received the very first Blizzard Jones Award a couple years ago. And I spoke to her this morning, and she said to give you her best. But she's probably on NBC or CBS or ABC about right now. So, and carrying a very strong message for workers today. So we have the 1912, 1913 uprising. There was a strike, and when Mother Jones came to Cabin Creek, Paint Creek, she had a rally at the mouth of the holler, and this is one of my favorite quotes. She said, and by the way, 6,000 people heard her speak, if you can imagine that, without a microphone. My guess is that 5,500 of them didn't hear her, but but she'd be fascinated by this device, right? But so what did she tell the miners? First of all, she shamed the men, said, you ought to be ashamed of yourself and let the women run this strike. But if you want to win this strike, go up Paint Creek, Cabin Creek, and arm yourselves and kill every one of those son of a bitches and burn all their tipples. That's one of my favorite quotes. I'm not advocating that here today, obviously, but that was what she said. And the Paint Creek, Cabin Creek strikes turned into the Paint Creek, Cabin Creek mine wars. Well, Mother Jones was arrested because martial law was declared. She almost died. This is a piece of the history that people don't know. She contracted pneumonia while she was under house arrest in Pratt, West Virginia. The governorship, Glasscock, Crystal Peter, as was mentioned earlier, was defeated, where his time in office expired, and Governor Hatfield came to the coal fields, discovered that she was dying, made the guards take her to the hospital, and that's all that saved her life, or we'd never seen anything after 1913 with respect to Mother Jones. Where did she go from 1913? She made her way to Ludlow. Of all things, and who did she encounter there? The same people she encountered from Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, the Ballingfell Stubbs. They had the death special at Ludlow. They had the bull moose special at Cabin Creek. There's a machine gun on the train and a machine gun on the car. But if you don't know this history, 13 women and children were murdered and burned alive at Ludlow, and mostly Greek immigrants. The thugs walked off the hill with kerosene, poured it on the tents that the miners were living in, and set them on fire. When the day was over, it was discovered that in one of the tents, 13 women and children had been burned alive. During the day, a young 12-year-old boy was shot. If you've never been to Ludlow, we do this every year, except this year because of the virus. You need to go. The monument to these workers is huge. It was built and was opened in 1918, four years after the Ludlow massacre. But my favorite quote from Mother Jones took place, and I think it's inspiration for today. And she gathered all of the strikers together after this terrible tragedy, and just being beaten down by the military, and women and kids being murdered. And she gathered them all in Trinidad, Colorado. And this is what she said. If you can imagine this, just thousands of people listening to her. And this is what she said. Sure you lost. Sure you lost. But they had bayonets. And all you had was the Constitution. And let me tell you, that in any contest between bayonets and the Constitution, the bayonets will win every time. But you must fight. You must fight and win. You must fight and lose. But beyond else, you must fight. So today, as we sometimes get frustrated and down and out and thinking, well, what are we going to do next? Stand up and fight back. And that would be Mother Jones's message to us as we face this terrible economic fight that we're in now, this terrible, terrible pandemic that we're in now. So the message to all workers today, I think echoes from Mother Jones right this moment. And that is, we must fight. Let's fight and win, fight and lose, but we've got to fight. Thank you.